I'd had enough and I was just done.
I had enough and I was done.
I walked in and I told my boss, I quit.
I walked in, I quit.
And why?
Why not? Why not
We could do this. We could do this better.
do things that scare you?
I felt alive all of a sudden, and it was amazing.
The Go Hunt Life Show, hosted by Todd Nevins.
Hello, this is Todd Nevins, and I interview people that had seemingly normal lives and careers going, but they pulled the ripcord to epically reinvent themselves in order to pursue a life full of purpose and passion. This episode is sponsored by PrintDirtCheap.com. Jeff Chrisman, the founder of Print Dirt Cheap, and the crew there are rock stars when it comes to delivering top quality printing at a cheap price. If you've met me in the last 3 years and I handed you a business card, it was printed by Print Dirt Cheap. They're my online digital printing company for everything. They do banners, company letterhead, a ton of direct mail pieces, funky decals, even menus for restaurants, over 30 categories of printing products, and yes, business cards. And they do it fast and they do it cheap. Jeff has streamlined every little aspect of the business to provide the perfect user experience, delivering the best product in the industry. I have personally been to the offices and I have seen it firsthand. But see for yourself. Go to printdirtcheap.com and use promo code GoHuntLife and get $10 off of your order. Or if you want to get a sample of their work, click on Sample Pack and they'll mail you one out for free. Go to printdirtcheap.com, use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. This episode is also sponsored by one of my companies, Click Placement. We are a pay-per-click marketing agency specializing in PPC badassery. We have literally helped hundreds of companies over the last decade drive engagement through paid search advertising using Google AdWords and Bing Ads, LinkedIn, and of course, Facebook. We work with startups, established businesses, and nonprofits to customize campaigns to drive sales or leads, build brand awareness, sell products, or generate mobile app downloads. Hit us up at clickplacement.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to start a conversation.
What I would really tell people, bottom line, is to not think so hard about what everyone else is saying. And it could be as close as your wife and your kids. And I know that hurts to say. It could be as close as your mom and your dad. Don't listen to anybody. The more you doubt yourself, the more people will rip apart of any positivity that you have in your life. There's so much fuzziness and diluted water around us that if we just focus on that one thing that we like, just go all out. That's it. Do that one thing as much as you possibly can and go from there. Just follow your heart. Follow your heart, follow your dreams, and do what's in your heart and watch the world conspire to support you.
That was Anthony Rigogliosi, and this conversation went all across the board. I reached out to Anthony for an interview because he is in the podcast space and actually helping people produce podcasts like me, and was an American living in Thailand. So he was making money in the podcast world and living abroad. What I didn't realize was that he was once homeless, living out of his car in New York. He'd had some struggles. And he was actually working at Best Buy, though, as a manager during the day and Target at night, and would then park his car in the parking lot and sleep in it. So a lot went into how he found himself homeless, and he unveils it all and talks about the definitive moment it hit him, that he was not on the right path and needed a massive jolt to reinvent his life. It started with him reading The 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. And from there, he wrote down one word on a piece of paper: Thailand. My conversation with Anthony starts right now. Anthony Rigogliosi, thank you for joining me today on Go Hunt Life.
Hey, Todd. Thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here.
What city are you in, and what are you looking at? What's your view?
Right now I'm in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia right now. My view is I'm on the 26th floor of this beautiful apartment building, and it's just overlooking the entire city, and just, you see beautiful open view over here. Yeah.
Nice. And you're based out of where?
Well, I've been in Southeast Asia for the last about 2 years. I'd say Chiang Mai for about a year. Now I'm living in Phuket, but I'm just doing a little bit of a visit in Malaysia for the time. Just a 2-week visit. That's all.
Okay. How old are you? Are you married, and do you have kids?
I actually turned 28 in 2 months, and I don't have any kids. But actually, the woman I'm dating right now, I'm dating a woman recently, and she has a 2-year-old. So, yeah, I guess for the last 6 months, I have a beautiful family that I'm really proud of.
Cool. What is your actual profession right now?
I make all my income based out of podcast production. So I produce podcasts for entrepreneurs, companies, artists, things like that. That's how I make my main source of income.
Okay. But not long ago, you had a normal corporate job with Best Buy.
Man.
What was your profession back then, and when was that? How long ago?
That actually, it's no, I say oh man because there's a lot of lessons learned. I did retail for actually about 8 years, since I was like 17. And when I was young, I was like such a hustler, and I worked at Best Buy for about 8 years, and I worked my way up the ladder to management, and that was about 2 years ago. Yeah. Okay. And I say oh man just because I'm happy with where I am right now, and being my own boss, so to speak. So that's why I say that.
Where were you at? What part of United States?
Well, I'm originally from New York, Long Island. That's where I was born and raised, and that's where I had my job. Long Island, Suffolk County. If anyone listening that knows the Suffolk County area, I've worked in a lot of Best Buys in that area.
How many people were you managing, and what did a typical day look like? What were you doing?
I think at one point during the holidays, I could have had like 25 people, and a lot of them are young. I'm young, I guess, and at the time, I'm obviously managing young people from 18 to actually. I did have one employee that was quite older than me, but a typical day was commuting about 35 minutes to work. So I would drive 35 minutes in my car, clock into work, check email for about an hour, plan out my day, look at my daily rhythm, maybe talk to the management, see how everyone's doing. You say the hellos and the hey, how's it going? And, you just make sure everyone's cool and saying what's up. And then you start getting down to work, right? I start doing coaching forums, and I see how the numbers are, and I dig in numbers for about a half hour, and then I get on the sales floor. Sometimes I sell, but a lot of times you just try to coach the employees, try to get them to sell the most money, the most things possible, and I'm sure you know the drill. Or if anyone that's been in retail, and it could be any type of retail, it's you got the pen and pad and the clipboard all day, and you're just typing and looking at numbers and hustle, running. And I've been through, you guys have Black Fridays, obviously. Everyone knows Black Fridays and those crazy sales, man. I've put together like 10 business plans for Black Friday, and I don't miss those at all. Just working 12 hours through Christmas, or not Christmas, but like Thanksgiving. And it could be so stressful. I'm just getting stressed just thinking about it right now.
I mean, what did you like about it? You spent 8 years. That's a long time.
Dude,
what did you like?
I'll be honest. So at the time I was going to school, right? So when I graduated high school in 2007, 2008, I went to college, community college. Mm-hmm. And what I liked about it was it made me money. And that was straight up, when you're young, like I bought a car, I bought a Scion TC 2008 Toyota. I put $10,000 down cash and things like that. Like, when you're young, you're like, wow, look at all this money. I bought whatever I wanted. I ate lobster, I ate fish. I just ate everything. And honestly, that's it. And the second thing, to be honest, besides that is the people. And that, to this day, I really value positive relationships in my life. And that gave me the opportunity to talk to people and learn from people and grow from people. And that's the only thing I think that truly kept me there in the end, was probably the employees and just seeing them grow and be friendly with them. And besides that, those two things right there, that's what kept me there.
When did you start thinking about a massive ripcord out of retail, out of the United States into Southeast Asia? When did that start happening?
It honestly, it wasn't like, some people wake up and like, I hate my life, I need to switch it. Like, it was kind of like that for me, but it was a little bit slower. I was turning 25, and I started to second guess what I was doing. I made it to management, right? And I could have gone one more up the ladder. And everyone was like, how do you think about this job? They're thinking about you. Or what do you think? You could be this person. You could get a raise. And I just thought to myself, I can't work any more hours. When you're working 40, 50, sometimes 60 during the holidays, I couldn't imagine working anymore. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And I was thinking of other options to go towards, and I just wasn't happy. Honestly, besides the people, it becomes this big rhythm. And then you're just like, well, I'm not happy with it. But I didn't know the solution until I'd probably say the actual solution to leaving the States. All right, so I'm unhappy for months and months and months. And I'd probably say, right? Like, have you been through that?
Oh,
You just
yeah,
kind of like,
course.
I hate my life,
But I don't
you're
know
like,
what to do.
What do I do?
Yeah.
And you just sit around, you hate yourself, and you kind of get sad, and that's what I did, man. I got pretty sad. I started drinking a bit more, and I was never really a drinker, but I just, when it's bad. I felt it was bad for me. My personal experience is when I was drinking alone and semi hiding it from people, I felt myself going down a bad path, and I just didn't think that was the right. I didn't feel good anymore. I didn't feel like exciting. Dude, I remember slamming a bottle. Some people might like this. They might get excited for this. I don't do this anymore. I've been sober since, but slamming a bottle of Jack Daniels and getting so hungry that night, just go to 7-Eleven, get a pack of cigarettes, and then you're going to laugh so hard, a raw cookie dough. A raw cookie dough. Dude, I would just eat the whole thing. That's it. And pass out. And I did that for a little too long. All right, so here's the actual tick for me. So besides being super unhappy and super pissed at life, and I started hating the world and myself, I was dating a woman at the time, and things weren't going so great. And what happened was I was kind of a jerk, believe it or not. So I'm going to show some humility. I was not a nice guy throughout all my life, and I wound up getting kicked out of the the woman I was dating at the time. I got kicked out of her house. We were living together, and I kind of got forced living in my car. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was kind of terrible at first. It was terrible, and I didn't want to tell anyone. And now I'm so happy to share because I learned so much about life living in my car, and that's where like the simplicity of living abroad came in. Like I didn't come out to live abroad to like work in Hong Kong or like $1 million stock exchange whatever. I didn't do anything fancy. I just thought simplicity. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Living in my car is really simple. I just like to eat food, water. I have shelter. I like hanging out with people and exercising, and that's what I was like. You know what? Where can I do this? Where can I do this around the world that is affordable? That's not New York prices. You know what I mean? And that's where the international came along. Doing some research, and I kind of came out here.
When you were living in your car, were you still working retail?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing, man. I was parking my car in the Target parking lot because it was like
kidding me.
Yeah, I was saving money because what happened was when I got kicked out, I had a dream, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Like, so I wrote one word down on a piece of paper, and the word was Thailand, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep going towards it. So I finished school at the time. So
wait a minute. So why? Oh my gosh. Okay. Why Thailand? Had you been there before? Where in the hell did that come from?
I'd say the main thing, I was following someone on YouTube, and I read a book. So one of my friends on YouTube
interesting.
Did a lot of cycling and traveling, and he's like, oh, Chiang Mai is cool. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but what does that mean to me? Like, there's a lot of cool places.
Sure.
And I read this book called The 4-Hour Workweek, and if I'm sure you've heard of it.
Of course. Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss, man. But he doesn't necessarily mention like, hey, go to Chiang Mai. It's cheap. It's great. You can start a business. It was more like a cheap place that had nice things to offer. Like it was it was like in the retirement section of this book. If you go like the real far end of the extended version, and that's the version I had. I know it sounds weird that I would pick that. I don't know, man. That's where it came. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to check it out. So I took a flight, and I just took a one-way flight. I wound up quitting my job after 6 months living in my car. I did, because then it got too cold. I spent 2 months in like a shared apartment. After like the last 5 years of my life, I've only lived in like basement apartments with like tiny windows, because it's kind of expensive, and I kind of wanted to save as much money as possible. So, after that, yeah, that's when I pulled the trigger, and I was like, finally save enough.
Gosh, I had no idea that this conversation was going to go in this direction. This is freaking awesome. All right, so...
I opened up a can, huh?
Oh, dude. Okay. So you quit your job you were at Target or Best Buy at that point?
Actually, funny story. I was hustling, man. So I actually did overnights at Target. I was actually working overnights at Target. But there's a conflict there, so I didn't tell anyone about that. But I was actually working at Best Buy.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was sleeping in the parking lot.
So you quit your jobs at that point. You've got your car. I mean, was it some like dramatic movie? You drive your car, you leave it at the airport parking lot and get your bag and get on the plane one way to Thailand? Like, how did that all go down?
Well, no, like what happened was I stepped down as management, right? I like my team, once I started not trying as much as work, at work, they didn't like that, right? When you feel like you're not doing as good a job at your job, and especially if it's retail, like they see that. You can't think that they're not watching you every day. And had a few conversations, what do you think? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just not happy here. They're like, all right, we'll make this easier for you. I'm like, cool. Set me up with this lateral move. Go over here. I moved closer where I live, and I sold my car and rode my bike. So I stopped driving my car to work to save money on gas.
Yep.
I started eating like lots of fruits and vegetables and bananas and rice and just, cheap stuff.
Okay.
And then from there, yeah, I gracefully left. I put my 2 weeks in.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't do like any time, like, because like there's man, what's that movie when he's like, I'm out of here. He's like, screw you, whatever it is, and I'm out of here. You throw the books and papers and you
Terry
leave.
Maguire?
Like it was not. Is that, yeah, okay. So it's a little more. I wanted to try to keep it PG, but yeah. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know that scene that I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
You're cool.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah, just respectfully, I have an opportunity. What I wrote down on my separation notice. Actually, here's a little secret. Actually, I had a 401k that I started when I was 17. That's a little secret. A lot of people don't know. And I had 10 grand in the bank on top of that.
Okay.
On top of the money I saved. So I wound up pulling that early. And yeah, I put my 2 weeks in. I wrote on the notice, I have an opportunity of a lifetime I have to take. And the only vision I had coming to Chiang Mai is to bring my bicycle and just to circle around, ride my bike, and just regain my peace, because I just was still so stressed at the time. And I just want to kind of reset life. I didn't want to think about work. I was like, I have 10 grand in my pocket, or 15 grand in my pocket. I'm just going to kind of go travel and explore and just hang out and chill. And at the time I had a YouTube channel, so I was making YouTube videos. And that was my vision. That's literally all I came out here to do.
All right. Were you making any money off of your YouTube videos?
By the time I got out here, I think I made like $100. I still make like $100 like every 2 months or every other month. That's like, nothing to brag about.
Okay. Well, whatever. Hey, man, it's $100. So, all right. So you get on the plane, you've got your bags, you've got what little you have, you've got 10 or 15 grand, and your bike. What happens when you land? What's your impression of Chiang Mai when you get to the city for the first time?
And keep in mind, like, I'm from New York, Long Island. I've been up and down the East Coast. I've actually been to Texas once for a corporate meeting, but you don't not travel wise, not like experience like that. So I land and my heart's racing, right? I've never been outside the country. I've never had an international passport.
Are you serious?
I know it sounds weird, right? Like, where I had the the avocados to do that? I don't know, man. Like I just wanted to do something, I guess, crazy, but don't get it twisted. People think like, wow, you just took your stuff and ran. It's like, well, I had 10 grand in my pocket. Like, I know I had a certain amount of time to live. I was like, all right, let me take a couple months, maybe a year, and just travel. My heart was pounding. I was racing. Obviously, I couldn't speak the language. I showed him a picture of my address, and yeah, I was nervous probably up until I fell asleep and woke up the next morning, and I walked up on the balcony, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. But I still didn't know. And then from there, I was still nervous. Like, so if anyone listening that has never been international before, I'll be honest, it's scary. It's a little nerve-wracking because you don't know the language. You don't know where you are. The comfort zone is just totally shifted. Mm-hmm. And I just went down the block to get food, and then I went back to my apartment for the rest of the day. And I just took it slow. And then every day I would check out something else and slowly come back and then go, and then I just did that. And then I got an apartment outside of town for cheaper, and I got more and more comfortable. And then after about 6 months, this is where I wanted to do something that wanted to earn me some money, because I was thinking, all right, I'm just hanging out. I always think like people always, and myself, I just want to sip coconuts on the beach and hang out and chill. Have you ever had that thought before?
Yeah, but I think I would be just bored after a week.
Well, for me, it was about 4 months.
Okay.
And yeah, I was like, I got to do something. I got to do something. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And
yeah,
I wound up taking a flight to Cambodia, and I cycled my bike 300 kilometers to the beach, because legally as a foreigner you can open up a business in Cambodia, and I was going to open up a business, a little food shack. But then when I actually got to Cambodia and cycled 300 kilometers along the coast, I just met so many people and ate good food and traveled. I wound up actually I cycled the entire country, and I went up to Laos and then Vietnam. I cycled like over 2,000 kilometers over the next couple months.
Whoa.
But here's the kicker, man. Like, I ran out of money. So yeah,
Okay.
I ran out of money with Vietnam.
So you burned through your 10 grand in how long? How many months?
Well, okay, yeah, like it's maybe 6 months. But in my defense, I bought a laptop, right? I bought a MacBook Air. I bought Final Cut Pro. I kind of enjoyed some nice restaurants. I ate like a local, but then I definitely enjoyed some, the finer things.
Sure.
And yeah, it just, I just was enjoying myself. I wasn't thinking about it. I don't know, man, but I felt so good about myself. I felt like, all right, I did it. Like, I don't know. And then, but after being broke, you don't know what to do. I had like $300 in my pocket.
That's it? You were down to 300.
I wasn't really paying attention to it. I don't know. It sounds so irresponsible, right? Like being a manager and managing money all the time. I've counted like hundreds of thousands of dollars in front of me, but I just was like, yeah, I don't know.
All right.
It's weird.
So you get to the $300 point. I don't know. You tell me. Did you feel like you were out of your element to make money? And one of the choices would have been, man, I got to come back to the States and regroup and restock up on my bank account? Or what were you thinking at that $300 point?
I was thinking I should have planned a little bit better. Like, a lot of people are just like, I want to pack my bags and go and travel. And I was like, man, why didn't I think about doing anything? So I found some jobs online. Like teaching English is very common. There was an app called Nice Talk, and you get like $10 an hour for talking to kids in China, and you literally just hang out and you talk to them. They always ask me questions about like, what car I have. I did that for about 1 hour or 2 hours, and I was like, this is just not challenging enough. You know what I mean? I was like, what do I do? So my friend's like, hey man, I know you're broke. I reached out to him. Hey man, I'm kind of broke. Like, what do you think I should do? And he said, well, this guy posted online, and he mentioned he's looking to hire an intern to help him with a podcast, or he wants help editing a podcast or something. I was like, I don't know anything about podcasts, man. He's like, well, apply and see. It says it doesn't need much experience. I was like, all right, I don't know. So it was $600 a month, right? And I was like, wow, that's great. That's triple what I have. That's double what I have in my pocket.
Right.
So, what would you do? I was like, okay. So I signed up and I applied, and he said, I want a video interview and tell me about yourself and this, that, and the third. And he's like, he called me like a couple hours later, and he said, hey, can you come to Chiang Mai, right back to Chiang Mai? And I was like, oh man, okay. So I just said, okay. He's like, I just want you for an interview. So I thought I mentioned that I was in Hanoi, Vietnam at the time, which is, northern Vietnam.
Right.
And I was like, I wonder if he heard that. But he's like, can you be here tomorrow? And I was like, did he not hear that I said I was in Vietnam? But I was like, all right, let me do it, right? What other choice do I have? So I flew there, and there was not many flights, so I had to sleep in the Bangkok airport overnight. And then I got there the next morning. And keep in mind, like for the last 2 years, I've traveled really lightly with a backpack. So I pretty much wore the same pants and the same shirt, same shoes. And they were pretty dirty. They're pretty dirty, and they're pretty holy. Like, they're pretty dirty, man. Like, yeah, dirty and like kind of cuts and so I was like, I can't go to the interview like this. Like, so I had to buy all new clothes, and then obviously I had a lot less money after the $200 of flights, $50 in clothes. I had to buy some food. I had to get a hotel for a few dollars. Then I'm almost down to $50, man. I went to the interview, and I went to go to my ATM again, and I didn't have any money. I couldn't withdraw any money at all. So I asked him. He winds up hiring me. Obviously, that's why I'm talking to you now, because it ends pretty well.
Yep.
But he said, hey, how do you want to get paid, Anthony? I'm like, can you pay me like as soon as possible?
Right now?
Like, because I had nothing. He's like, all right, every 2 weeks is cool. I'm like, all right, fine. So I just ate like rice and beans for the next 2 weeks, and that's how it all started, man. Then that's what got me where I am today.
When was that? How long ago did you start? When was starting day for that company?
8 months ago. It was an internship, man. So I was working for like $5 an hour. That's the thing too. It was crazy. $5 an hour.
Wow. All right. So was he a local from Thailand? Was he an American? Like, who was this guy?
Okay, so this guy, his name is Johnny FD, and he's got a travel blog. He's a traveler, entrepreneur. He did Muay Thai kickboxing. He has an online blog. He's been online blogging about online income for about 7 years plus. I know he came to Chiang Mai a long time ago, and he just talks about how to make your money online and how to travel as well as you're doing it, and just kind of being your own boss. That's kind of his vibe, and that's his kind of, mission statement. And I knew nothing about that. I didn't know anything about making money online. That's why I'm like just coming out here to hang out. Like most people, just want to travel. And so I guess working with him or working as an intern to him, he taught me a lot. He showed me how to launch a podcast. He gave me lots of tricks on like how to monetize and stuff like that. And from there, $600 didn't work for me as much anymore, because I was like, man, I'm stuck in Chiang Mai still, and then from there I just kind of wanted to start using my knowledge and kind of using it for other podcasts and launching other people's work. And I wound up taking on other clients eventually and helping other people launch and edit other shows. I wound up going on, there's platforms called Upwork and Fiverr. Yep. And I started going on there for like $5 gigs to edit like an hour podcast, and just trying to get my name out there more, to show people I had the skill and the talent to edit, clean, quick, and professionally. And I got to the point where I'm today, where I got a website up, and I got a bunch of people I'm coaching through and launching podcasts for people. And now it's a full-time income. I don't even do YouTube anymore, but it still generates money. But yeah. And
so you founded podcastninja.net.
Founded podcastninja.net. Yeah. I talked to him, and I was like, hey man, I want to branch out. I want to kind of start my own thing. Yeah. And I just started getting so many clients. I was like, I got to build something. And that podcast, how cool is that name? Podcastninja.net.
That's cool, man. And I like the tagline, we build podcasts, we produce art. Nice. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. All right. So you start teaching on Upwork and Fiverr. And so that was your move into gaining customers and getting developing a client base, correct?
Yeah, that was part of it. Also, I did a lot of, I'm a hustler, I'm a retail guy. So I messaged dozens and dozens and dozens of people on Facebook, and I talked to people in person, and I just messaged them, hey, can I add your podcast for free? If you like it, maybe we could talk. If not, then that's cool. And there was a lot of that in there too. So yeah, a lot of but those two platforms that skyrocketed everything. That was everything for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. I got my first client through Upwork. Yeah.
Through Upwork. All right. So what services you coach people into launching? You also do editing and like what's your array of services that you offer?
Like what I specialize in is just helping them launch, zero to launch. So if you want to start a podcast, you have the idea, you just don't know how to do it. There's so much information out there, good and bad. Some cost high value, some is free, and some of it's just a lot of time wasting, right? Like I have a quick punchline of like how to get you from, your idea, your logo, your subtitle, how many episodes to launch, to how to get it up on iTunes and all those 20 other platforms, and some tips on editing. And yeah, that's what I do. So I literally only started out by just saying, hey, send your audio file to me and I'll take care of the rest. And I think that's why people like it. Give me your raw audio file. I'll publish it, edit. I'll write the show notes. I'll give you Twitter quotes, the whole 9 yards. And you just sit back and give me 3 days and I'll do it. And then people like that. And then some people couldn't afford the service. So I was like, you know what, let me try to coach people through it. And yeah, then now they branch together. So,
and you publish on their website if they want that, all of that stuff.
Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, WordPress, Libsyn. I recommend hosting through Libsyn. It's what I typically go through.
What I go through.
Yeah, I do the whole thing, man.
Okay, so I launched in July of last year. I am 41 episodes in, and when I launched, I went through. 1 year ago, I didn't know anything about podcasting either, and I jumped. We had just moved from Mexico back to the United States, to Austin, Texas. We'd spent 5 years in Mexico. And I didn't know anything about podcasting either, and I jumped into the tech community here in Austin, which is pretty outstanding, and learned my way and watched as many YouTube videos as I could and read as much as I could. And so I launched on July 1, and I did not get featured in New and Noteworthy. What's your take on that? And I was all over Libsyn and all over anyone I could get on to help me through that process, and it did not hit. Do you have an idea as to why? And is that a common or uncommon thing?
It's so common. I know, actually, I made a mistake. Actually, I'm coming up on my year. It's about 10 months now I've been doing it, but I know since I've started, a lot of the same podcasts are in the new and noteworthy section.
I agree with you.
So it's so weird. So I don't know if sometimes I say like, oh, I wonder if they're paying top dollar to be in there or something but I know the typical, I'll call it quote unquote myth, is you have 8 weeks to launch on iTunes and they want to estimate about 1,000 downloads. I don't know if that's accurate. It definitely doesn't seem accurate anymore because I've witnessed these things. 8 weeks, 1,000 downloads, 20 iTunes reviews, and it doesn't stick.
Right.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of hype around getting in that new and noteworthy section. Obviously, it looks good, right? It's like the featured page.
Sure.
But any podcast I produced and the two main podcasts that I started, they haven't been in, and they get quite a bit of downloads, and they got sponsorships recently. So I think if you're focused on just the new and noteworthy section, don't feel like you lost. You didn't lose anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's cool. It's something. It's like the medal, right? Like, dude, I got in the new and noteworthy section. Like, dude, that's cool. But there's still hope, is all I'm saying. There's still so much more potential.
Yeah, and I mean, after I was in, week 3, week 4, week 7, I'm like, oh my gosh, the clock is ticking, and this sucks. But and that's what I had learned, and I agree with you that isn't. When Libsyn actually came through to me, which I'm a huge fan of Libsyn, they do a great job, and they said, man, there's a lot of myths around the new and noteworthy thing. Don't sweat it, and it's not just because you're a customer of ours. Like it's real. It's some people get in and some people don't, and some shows are 4 months old and they're put back in there. So just keep doing what you're doing and it'll all be fine. So all right, so I'm 40 episodes in. I'm going through, let's say you've got a show, it's 40 episodes in, it's slowly building not slowly, I'm going 40 or 50% download increase month over month in regards to total downloads, because I've obviously got more and more inventory out there. What are some of the things that I should be doing in regards to marketing and gaining an audience that I may not have picked up on in all the forums and sites and people that I network with?
I know the podcast that I've seen super success from is they really leverage their quote unquote celebrity type guests.
Okay.
And that's pretty huge. I think if you get 1 or 2, 3 big names, I'm talking like big names.
Sure.
That's a huge way to spread it out. When people see that, they're like, wow, this has got to be legit. If he's on it, I want to check it out. But I mean, at the same time, a lot of podcasts that I see do well are just the real genuine people.
Yeah.
When you listen to someone's story and you're like, wow, he's like me. Like, he's not even that far. He's not this superstar with $1 billion in his pocket. I could obtain that. And I think that's what's so inspiring when people hear, wow, he's real like me. And that goes a long way. Honestly, so it sounds weird, but it's like, just keep it genuine and just keep sharing on social. Get the guests to share it, be excited to be on your show, and try to get the social media pushed through genuine organic traffic.
Yep.
And it's going to be the long game, right? You got to play the long game.
Always.
All right, so you already know, man. Yeah. So it's like, a lot of, my generation, right? We're always like, oh, I want to be rich tomorrow. I want to blow up and have millions of views tomorrow. And it's like, nobody really gets rich overnight. No. Facebook's not built overnight, man.
No. Do you host your own show?
Not yet. I don't have the time for it. Although I recently have just been requested so much. So I can't say what my idea is, but there will be coming one soon.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait. All right. So South by Southwest here in Austin is a massive conference. I don't even know if conference is a right word for that, but it starts with interactive media and technology for about 4 or 5 days. Then it rolls into film. A lot of documentaries get released, and then it rolls into music. So it is 10 days of off the charts. And so I dove in recently, and the theme throughout South by and the not hype, that's the wrong word, the confidence in the podcast industry was absolutely massive. I'm going to take a quick side note. Casey Neistat was here as well, the massive YouTube guy.
Okay.
And certainly in Tim Ferriss's new book, Tools of Titans, there's a great section on Casey. And that guy's schedule, it's not a farce that he is the number one guy on YouTube. He's putting in the time. He has put in years and years and years of time. His daily schedule starts at 5 a.m. and goes to 11 p.m. And he is recording and cutting and producing and pumping out cool, interesting videos, but he's in it for the long game as well. And it's just that's why he's successful. So it was really cool to see him and just to hear his story. But another thing that came out of South by is just how small the podcast industry is right now, but this thing is building up ahead of steam. So give you some stats. The podcast ad spend in 2016 was $167 million compared to radio $17.8 billion. The projected ad spend in 2020 is going to be $500 million in the podcast world, and dollars are rolling quickly from radio over to podcasts. And the dude from Gimlet Media, who was the host of the Startup podcast a couple of years ago, which was also super transparent, and why it was so successful is because, man, he was just fumbling around. He didn't know what he was doing, but he's now running a network out of New York, Gimlet Media, and 90% of their customers are renewing year over year. And so from a local from a local view here in Austin and then certainly throughout the United States, that's the view here. What's your perspective from being outside of the United States and having more of an international, wider scope of this industry? What's your take on it?
Well, I think for sure, I don't think there's many conferences out here international, at least what I've seen. And I think that when people are traveling and they're doing these unique things with their job and they're having online income, passive income, things like this, they're excited to share their story and they want to get more and more into it. I think the generation that we're in today, there's two reasons why people will even consider listening to a podcast, and one of them being portability, on-demand portability, right? You choose what you want to watch, what you want to listen, when you want to listen to it, how long you want to listen to it, right? Working out and driving in the car. Back home, I think an average commute in the U.S. is about 25 minutes.
Yep.
I don't know if that's okay. So
you're right.
And most people listen to it in their car in the podcast or working out. And the other thing is, when you talk about like Casey Neistat and all these other guys, and the support, it's a small market, but it's a die-hard market. The connection that people get from their guests and their hosts is so die-hard. Like if you listen to a podcast host, you listen to him. You don't just listen to one episode, and you fall in love with them. They're just incredible fans. And I think that it'll come around in time, but I think the opportunity is diversity and demographic. I think that's the one thing that I see that's a bit lackluster as far as other hosts to create podcasts in other communities that maybe lack income or are of different color. And I think that's one thing that I would love to see. And anytime I see someone that could bring something different to the table in that aspect, just a different view on the world, I love it. I support it. I had someone that reached out to me that just wanted to share a podcast host from India. And there was tons of them. And I thought that was really cool because you don't see that often, you know what I mean? So I was like, wow, that's great. And she showed so many links to me, and there was just so many cool like murder podcasts and like comedy podcasts. And I was like, wow, this guy's pretty funny. Or I was like, wow, that murder scene was pretty cool that he talked about. And it's just so if anything, I would like to see more of that, and I think in time we will see more of that.
All right. And you mentioned that you help your customers monetize. What are the ways that they are monetizing successfully?
Okay, so big one is affiliate marketing, and I think that's the easiest that anyone could start today. Amazon affiliate, Amazon associates, you could go on there and just recommend product. But see, this is where people miss the disconnect, is people just start recommending product that they'll never use or they don't actually read or that they don't actually have experience with, and that's when they'll lose. And people that listen to the show will see that a mile away. But a lot of people I work with can make up to $500 a month just recommending books. And I mean, you could go to like, if you heard of Udemy or ClickBank, these are some other platforms you could go recommend, software services and things like that. If there's a course that that's good to just start your business or how to monetize something, recommend these courses, and then you kind of get paid out. And it doesn't have to be like Amazon associates. I know people that have reached out to other people that own businesses and say, hey, do you have an affiliate program? And they get paid, $100 a month or something like that. It start small, right? You don't want to go so big.
Sure.
And go from there. But another thing I've noticed is when you're getting 7,000, 10,000 downloads, which some of my clients are, they'll reach out to you, and they'll be willing to pay you, $250 to $500 per episode when you're getting 10,000 downloads per.
Sure.
And that'll come eventually. But I think everyone could start out with Amazon affiliates like that. You could think simple like donate. I know some people feel a bit weird, but when you're starting out, you want people to donate. That's cool, man. Like support the show. If you like my content, cool. Just $1 just helps me out. Whatever you want to say. Another one, I'm going to bang out. I got two more. Sell your own products, sell your own course. That's what I'm working on right now. Subscriptions, memberships, secret groups, ebooks, consultations, coachings. Like sell yourself. If you offer something, sell it. But again, has to be genuine, right? You don't don't just blabber it out. Make it make sense to everyone. And then actually we talked about sponsorship already. The average person's paying about $18 per 1,000 downloads, and you can get sponsorship from a lot of people. And so those are 4 little bullet points on. I think that's how I've seen people get paid and monetize their podcast in different ways.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So what advice do you have to someone that's like, man, I am passionate about comic books, pulling that out. I'm passionate about comic books. I like podcasts. I like listening to podcasts, but I haven't found a podcast out there that would have my take on comic books. What's your advice for them to get started?
Oh, see, that's the thing. Like, I'm a firm believer. Like, no matter what you're doing, model somebody else's what they're doing. So if you see someone that, wow, that guy's successful, have no idea what to do, model the behaviors of someone else. And someone says, well, that's not original, that's a copycat. But if you're going to read 1,000 books to get to the same end result, check out what the millionaires are doing, check out what the successful podcasters are doing, and start to mimic that. But don't do that forever. Use that as a guideline, and then put your own spin to it. So if this comic book guy is like, you know what, I like that spin, but they're not comparing this aspect, or the new old characters, or what about the new movies, the old movies, right? And they're abusing it. They're going to Hollywood, whatever it is. You got to bring your own spin to it and make it cool. And honestly, the nerdier the better with things like that, right? When you're a master of your craft, people like that, right? Don't focus on like the width of I want to attract everyone like a pop star. Like just focus on how deep you're gonna go in your niche. And that's my advice. Yeah.
Go deep or go home. Okay, I love it. All right, so now you've been at this for a couple years. What does a typical week look like now for you?
All right, so currently I'm traveling. The woman I'm dating right now is doing some work in Malaysia, so I'm kind of tag teaming with her.
Okay.
Let's say when I'm not like bumper to bumper traveling from different countries, I'll wake up. I might go for a walk across the street, look at the beach. I live across the street from a nice, beautiful beach. I live on an island, actually, Phuket Island. And I'll look across the street there, maybe grab a pineapple, a fresh mango. Sometimes I'll ride my bike up and down the block, depends. Then I will check some email, edit a couple podcasts, break for lunch, and maybe I'll catch a TV show. I've been kind of watching some TV shows here and there, series of unfortunate events. I'm not big on TV because I think it's not a bit of waste of time, but it's it's just time to kill. But it's kind of funny when I say this. Some people are like, I'm working 9 to 5 day and night, or 9 to 9, and I'm kind of like casual about it a little bit. But don't get it twisted. I still put a lot of hours in, but on average, break for lunch, watch a little bit of TV, and edit a bit more podcast till about 3. Then the little munchkin comes back from school. Then we'll go to the pool. I'll do a little bit more of work for about an hour. Then we will, I think, eat dinner and then relax, watch a movie, and go to bed.
That's pretty chill, man. And you can walk to the
chill,
island.
But I mean, like I said, don't, like there are nights, and this is honest, like that's an average day, but there are nights. And last night I was up till 1 a.m. editing a podcast.
Yeah.
If I take on a new client and they have 4 episodes launched, like I'll do day and night work to get that done. So like, yeah, I made that sound casual because that's average. I don't work weekends. I'll check email or something, but I don't work weekends at all. Fridays are pretty light, but yeah, like that's average. So I just don't want people to think like, wow, he's pretty casual. But I've spent a lot of time, and I still invest a lot of time. I'm working on a lot of things still to expand. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are you focused on in the next 12 months? You alluded to it, and you don't want to bring it up yet, but what are you focused on?
So, no, I mean, like, I don't want to be like, oh, he's not sharing like his goals. So I'm actually in the middle of creating a podcast course. So a professional podcast course. Yep. I'm going to call it kind of like how to become a podcast ninja, a professional podcast course, and just take them, 0 to launch. And that's my first thing. And then once that's up, I'm going to continue. I run like a private Facebook group called Podcast Ninja Dojo. And it's just like new guys coming in and just people sharing advice, sharing articles, things like that. And I'm looking to expand that more. And from there, I'm going to launch a new podcast that should be done. I'm going to launch probably in the next 60 days, I think.
All right.
And so the next 12 months, man, that's, I think, I don't know, to be honest. Actually, you made me just think just now, I would love to do some sort of international conference or maybe partner with some other top dogs or something and get something going in Chiang Mai or out here in international water, just kind of get that demographic around podcasting a bit. There's so many in the States, and I feel like build the community a bit more internationally, and I think that's a long-term play. But that's it. So once the course is up, and then once my podcast is up, it's just keep grinding, and then that'll just be it. So that's 12 months down the line.
Got it. All right. So what advice do you have for someone right now? They're in that 25-minute commute. They're sitting in traffic. They're driving to a retail big box store that they don't, like a job they hate, or they're sitting in a cubicle all day. What advice do you have for them to tell them, man, life is too short. Walk into your boss's office, hand in your notice, and get out there and follow your crazy dream. What would you tell them?
What would I tell them? This is good. I like this question a lot. And what I would really tell people, bottom line, is to not think so hard about what everyone else is saying. And it could be as close as your wife and your kids. And I know that hurts to say. It could be as close as your mom and your dad. Don't listen to anybody. Follow your heart, follow your dreams, and do what's in your heart, and watch the world conspire to support you. And they will. It will take time, and stay confident, because the more you doubt yourself, the more people will rip apart of any positivity that you have in your life. I think that some people are confused on where to go, but at the same time, it's not clear because there's so much fuzziness and diluted water around us that if we just focus on that one thing that we like, whether if you like to skateboard, if you like to play video games, if you like to create videos, just go all out. That's it. Do that one thing as much as you possibly can, and go from there. Just follow your heart. That's all I would say.
I can't add any more to that. That is perfect. You can find Anthony at podcastninja.net. I'll have the show notes, the links to Anthony's LinkedIn page, Podcast Ninja Dojo Facebook group. Anywhere else that people can find you?
No, that's the main thing. I mean, I have a YouTube channel, which is like kind of my travel videos once in a while. That's trektheworld.tv, but podcastninja.net. That's where to find me, man. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Anthony, thank you very much for your time today.
Todd, this is a lot of fun, man. I like this, man. Thank you so much for letting me share some of my experience, and thanks a lot.
Don't forget to hit up the rock stars at printdirtcheap.com. Use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. For fast, cheap, and high-quality online printing, it's printdirtcheap.com. Hey, Life Hunters, thank you for listening to this episode of Go Hunt Life. If you like the show and would like to support it, go to iTunes and do this. Subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and review it. It helps, and thank you. If you or someone that you know has quit their normal life to follow their dreams, I would love an introduction and maybe interview them on the show. You can find me at gohuntlife.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at Go Hunt Life. Until next time, stay weird, dare greatly, and ripcord out.